All right, let's jump into Diwali.
Sounds good.
We're talking origins, meanings, celebrations, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Our main source for this deep dive, excerpts from Wikipedia's Diwali page.
Always a solid place to start.
Right, it's the Festival of Lights. Yeah, I get that.
Right.
But just from reading this, I'm already thinking it's got to be way more than just pretty lamps,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's more like, imagine standing up for what you know is right,
Okay.
even when it's super tough. That kind of good versus evil energy, but like on a mythical scale.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
And we're talking millions celebrating this, right?
Millions and millions.
Mainly Hindus, but I'm also seeing Jains, Sikhs, some Buddhists.
Yep, you got it.
Right away, you just know this is huge G culturally.
It is. It really speaks to how universal those core themes are, you know?
Totally. So everyone listening, mark your calendars. Diwali this year is from October 30th to November 3rd.
Right.
Tied to the lunar calendar, so it moves around a bit each year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but let's rewind. Way back, where did this whole Diwali thing even begin?
Well, the origins are probably in those old harvest festivals.
Makes sense.
Probably a bunch of them, over time kind of merging into this one big celebration.
Interesting. And we're talking like, how old are the earliest mentions?
We see them in Sanskrit texts like 7th to 10th centuries.
Okay, so old school.
Yeah.
But not so ancient that it's like lost all meaning for us today.
Exactly. What's cool is there are all these accounts from travelers throughout history,
Oh, right.
each one giving us a little snapshot of how Diwali was celebrated in their time.
I love that.
It shows how much it's evolved, always kind of reflecting the world around it.
So it's ancient, it's evolved, but TWHY Diwali, what's at the heart of it all?
Right.
Wikipedia mentions like multiple stories, right?
Right.
There's Rama's return to Ayodhya after defeating Ravana, right?
Yeah, that's a classic.
Good overcoming evil. That's a story everyone gets.
Exactly. It's timeless, you know. We all face those inner battles.
Totally. Then there's Krishna defeating the demon Narakasura, celebrated the day before Diwali on Naraka Chaturdashi.
Like a bonus celebration.
Right.
Yeah.
Each story, it's like adding another layer of meaning, you know?
Absolutely. They're not just fun myths. They're carrying these deep messages about, like, morality and spirituality.
And then there's Lakshmi,
Yes.
the goddess of wealth. She's basically the queen of Diwali, right?
You could say that. Yeah, Lakshmi is central to the whole thing.
In what way?
Some believe Diwali is literally her birthday.
Her birthday.
Yeah, like the anniversary of her emerging from the cosmic ocean
What?
during this massive churning called Samudra Manthana.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to picture this.
It's epic. This huge ocean churned by gods and demons.
Wow.
And from that chaos, Lakshmi is born.
That is a grand entrance.
Right.
But wait, there's another story about Lakshmi, isn't there?
There is. Some say Diwali is when she chose Vishnu as her husband.
Ah, so there's a love story in there too.
Exactly. Adds a whole other dimension.
Okay, so we've got epic battles, demon slaying, cosmic births, Andy, a divine love story, all in one festival.
It's packed.
No wonder it's so popular. But hold on, it's not just a Hindu thing, is it?
Good point. It
Yeah.
goes way beyond that. For Jains, Diwali marks when Mahavira achieved nirvana.
Oh, interesting.
So not gods and goddesses there, but reaching that state of like total enlightenment.
So there's this whole philosophical introspective side too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you've got Sikhs celebrating it as Bandi Chor Divas.
Remind me what that one's about again?
Commemorates the release of Guru Hargobind from prison.
Powerful, right. Like, freedom is worth fighting for no matter what.
And even some Buddhists celebrate Diwali.
Really? I didn't know that.
They focus on Lakshmi, so those themes of prosperity, abundance come through.
It's amazing how these traditions all intertwine.
It is. Shows you how Diwali can speak to so many different people.
So we've got all these layers of meaning, all these communities, and it's not even one day, right?
Nope, 5 whole days.
5-day affair. Each one with its own, like special rituals? Significance?
Exactly. It's like this amazing build-up to the main celebration.
A symphony, you're saying?
You could say that.
Okay, I'm ready to break it down day by day.
Right.
What makes each one unique beyond just the basic stuff? Give me the insider scoop.
Okay, so Dhanteras, day 1.
Got it.
You've got the cleaning, lighting, the first diyas. But picture this. It's also a huge DE shopping day.
Boy.
Like pre-holiday rush, but instead of gadgets, you're picking out beautiful new utensils, jewelry, decorations.
Oh, I see. It's about bringing in the new, literally A&D symbolically.
Exactly, you got it.
Then day 2, Naraka Chaturdashi.
This one's a bit different.
House.
It's about helping souls out of hell.
Okay. A little darker, maybe? More introspective?
Yeah, you could say that.
But don't forget the sweets.
Oh, absolutely. Naraka Chetadashi is huge EE for sweet shopping.
Yeah.
Mountains of ladoos, stacks of barfi. It's a whole thing.
Gotta fuel up for all that celebrating.
You got it.
Okay, then day 3, we hit the main event, Lakshmi Puja.
The big one.
I'm imagining everyone's dressed up, lamps everywhere.
Think homes and temples lit up with tons of dayas, families in their finest clothes, feasting, sharing sweets. It's magical.
You're making me wish I was there right now.
It's something else.
But the party doesn't stop there, right? Day 4.
Day 4 is Anakut, also called Govardhan Puja.
Okay.
This is all about abundance, gratitude for the harvest. Imagine mountains of food offered to Krishna.
Food mountains. Okay, you've got my attention.
It's a symbol of recognizing nature's bounty,
I love it. Plus, there's that story about Krishna and Indra, right?
Oh yeah, a little rivalry never hurts.
Adds to the drama.
Right.
Then day 5, we've got Pai Duj,
Exactly.
celebrating that brother-sister bond.
It's a sweet reminder of how important family is.
It's beautiful that Diwali dedicates a whole day to that specific relationship.
Absolutely. It's not just the grand celebrations. It's about cherishing those connections.
It's incredible how much this festival packs into 5 days.
It is.
From quiet reflection to massive celebrations, from personal rituals to huge community gatherings, it's really unique.
Absolutely. A whole tapestry of traditions.
But I have a feeling we're just scratching the surface here, right?
Oh yeah, there's so much more to explore.
There's more to Diwali than meets the eye.
Definitely.
This is where things get really interesting.
It does.
But listeners, we'll have to delve into all that in part 2.
Can't wait.
Get ready for even more insights into this incredible festival.
It's going to be good.
Welcome back. I'm still thinking about all that Diwali food.
Oh yeah, the sweets.
But those traveler's accounts we talked about, remember?
Yeah.
It's like they're giving us these little peeks into Diwali across history.
Time capsules.
Exactly. What were they actually seeing way back when?
Okay, so imagine, like, the 11th century.
Okay.
We've got Al-Biruni, this Persian scholar.
Mm-hmm.
He observed Diwali happening during the new moon in the month of Kartika.
Just like it is now.
Exactly.
So even 1,000 years ago, that lunar calendar connection was there?
It was. It makes you realize how deep these traditions go,
Deeply rooted.
Then fast forward a few centuries, like 15th century.
Okay.
We've got Niccolo de Conti, this Italian merchant.
Right.
What did he see?
He was blown away by how many oil lamps there were, like everywhere.
Really?
Homes, temples, all lit up.
Wow. No electric lights back then, right?
Just the glow of all those dayas.
It must have been stunning.
Breathtaking, I bet.
Makes me wonder how our celebrations today compare to that,
Interesting thought. He also mentioned families getting together, dressed up, singing, dancing, feasting.
Sounds pretty familiar.
Some traditions, they just stick around.
It's like we're all connected through these shared experiences.
Across time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Any other cool details from those travelers?
Okay, so 16th century, Domingo Pace, this Portuguese traveler.
Okay.
He was in the Vijayanagara Empire in South India.
Got it.
He saw Diwali happening in October. Homes and temples decorated with lamps.
Festival of Lights was definitely a thing back then.
Yeah. It's amazing how these accounts, spread across centuries, they help us track how the traditions evolve.
It's like a puzzle.
Totally. So, speaking of evolving, we talked about the economic boom during Diwali.
Yeah.
How big of a deal is it, really?
It's massive. For some, it's even bigger than Christmas, spending-wise.
Really?
People buying new clothes, jewelry, gifts, decorations. It's an extravaganza.
It all ties back to Lakshmi, right?
The goddess of wealth, exactly. Makes those Diwali purchases feel a little more special, I bet.
Like you're investing in good fortune.
Totally. It's a time for renewal, both spiritually and materially.
People cleaning their homes, letting go of the old.
Embracing the new. A fresh start.
It's like a symbolic cleaning, you're saying?
Yeah, like decluttering your mind, too, not just your space.
But it's not just the big businesses that benefit, right?
No way. Local markets, small businesses, artisans, they all see a huge jump in sales.
It's going to be a big boost, especially after the past couple of years.
Absolutely vital for a lot of communities.
Yeah.
And don't forget the stock market.
Oh, right. They have that special Diwali trading session.
The Muhurat trading, yeah. It's symbolic, kicks off the new financial year with like an hour of trading in the evening.
It's cool how these ancient traditions can blend with like modern finance.
It really is.
Yeah.
We also talked about Diwali being used for like diplomacy, promoting inclusivity.
Right. That was fascinating. How does that work exactly?
Well, think about it. Diwali's message, light over darkness, good over evil.
It's universal.
Exactly. It
Right.
resonates with people no matter their background.
It's about building bridges between communities and not just Hindus celebrating with Hindus.
That's the key, yeah. And we see this all over the world. Governments hosting Diwali events, world leaders sending messages, interfaith dialogue.
It's using this joyful celebration to, like, bring people together.
Exactly. A reminder that we have more in common than we realize.
I love that. So even at a personal level, people from different backgrounds are joining in, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've heard of, like, Muslim and Christian neighbors taking part, sharing sweets, gifts. Yeah, it's heartwarming.
It's like Diwali's this time when everyone opens their hearts and homes.
Welcoming everyone to share the joy, the light.
It's a beautiful message, especially these days.
It is. It is Diwali's evolution, how it stays relevant in a world that's constantly changing.
It's inspiring.
It really is.
Yeah.
But I think we deserve a little break before we hit the final chapter of our deep dive.
Agreed.
Join us in part 3. We've got even more fascinating insights to uncover.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
History, myths, all those celebrations, the impact it has. But now I'm thinking about, like, the deeper meaning.
Right.
What are the big takeaways from Diwali?
It's like this.
Okay.
Think about the toughest thing you've ever overcome.
Mm-hmm.
That moment when you push through, like, darkness, doubt, maybe even fear, and found your own inner strength.
Yeah.
That's what Diwali celebrates, but on this grand scale through all these myths and rituals.
And lamps. Don't forget the lamps.
And lamps everywhere.
So it's not just about the external lights. It's about that internal journey, too. I love that. It adds so much more depth.
It does. All those dayas, the fireworks, the way people light up their homes, it's all reflecting that inner transformation, you know.
That victory of good over evil.
Within ourselves, yeah.
Powerful. Okay, so that's one big takeaway. What else does Diwali kind of illuminate for us?
Fresh starts.
Fresh starts.
Big time. Think about when you clean your home, decorate it before guests come over.
Okay, yeah.
It's that same energy, but amplified. It's about letting go of the old, making space for the new, both physically and spiritually.
Like a symbolic decluttering.
Yes. Of your mind, too, not just your stuff.
Yeah.
It's a perfect time to reflect on the past year, what worked, what didn't.
And then set intentions for what you want in your life.
Exactly. Like Diwali resolutions, if you will.
Oh, I like that. Light over darkness, fresh starts.
Yeah.
What other, like, gems are hidden in Diwali?
Remember all those epic stories we talked about? Rama, Krishna, defeating these powerful forces of evil?
Yeah.
It's a reminder that righteousness, justice, it ultimately wins no matter how long it takes.
It's a hopeful message, especially when things feel tough.
Absolutely. No matter how dark it gets, the light always breaks through.
So inspiring. But how has Diwali itself changed over time? Any, like, modern twists to it?
Well, there's definitely more awareness now about the environmental impact, especially with fireworks.
Right.
People are looking for ways to celebrate more sustainably, like switching to LED lights, maybe using quieter fireworks.
So it's adapting.
It is, which is pretty amazing. And it's gone global, you know.
Global.
Diwali's not just in India anymore. You see celebrations all over the world.
Right.
People from all walks of life embracing those ideas of light, hope, togetherness.
That's incredible how one ancient festival can reach so many people.
It really speaks to the universal appeal of those core values.
Seeking knowledge, choosing good, new beginnings.
Celebrating life with joy and gratitude, all of it.
Okay, so we've gone deep here. We've explored the history, the myths, the rituals, even the challenges.
All the way.
But what does it all mean for us, the listeners? Why should we care about Diwali even if we don't celebrate it ourselves?
Because Diwali reminds us, no matter who we are, where we come from, that light exists even in the darkest times.
And that we all have the power to choose good to make a difference.
Exactly. It's like Diwali is giving us this toolkit for facing challenges, finding joy, connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive,
Yeah.
what resonated most with you about Diwali's message?
That's a good question.
And how can our listeners bring a little bit of that light, that hope, into their own lives?
In their own way, yeah. That's something to think about.
It's a beautiful thought to end on. It's like Diwali's not just a festival, it's an invitation.
An invitation to what?
To find our own light and then share it with the world. Thanks for joining us on this amazing journey, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you learned something new, felt inspired, and maybe even sparked a little Diwali spirit within yourselves. Ready for a deep dive into some ancient mysteries. Today, we're tackling the theory of ancient astronauts. Got that Wikipedia article you sent me, and wow, it's got some wild ideas.
It really captures the imagination, doesn't it? Even though it's pretty much considered pseudoscience. But it's interesting to look at why people find it so compelling, even if it doesn't hold up scientifically.
Exactly. So for anyone who hasn't jumped down this rabbit hole, what's the basic idea behind the ancient astronaut theory?
Basically, it claims that intelligent aliens visited Earth way back when and influenced how human civilization developed. They think these extraterrestrial encounters explain everything from how the pyramids were built to why we have certain religious beliefs.
So like aliens were the original architects and influencers, but the scientific community isn't really on board with this, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
They see it as lacking real evidence, and the methods used to reach these conclusions, not very rigorous. So it's filed under pseudoscience.
Okay, so we're probably not going to see scientists packing up their labs and heading to Roswell anytime soon then.
Probably not. But that doesn't mean we can't have some fun poking around these theories, right?
Absolutely. Let's start with one of the biggest names in this field, Erich von Däniken. His book, Chariots of the Gods, was a huge hit back in the late 60s and really got people talking about ancient astronauts. What was von Däniken's main argument anyway?
Well, he basically said that a lot of ancient stuff like Stonehenge, the pyramids in Egypt, those Nazca lines in Peru, they were just too advanced, that the people who supposedly built them couldn't have without some help.
And I mean, you look at something like the pyramids, even today, and it's mind-blowing. So it's easy to see why someone might think, how did they do that?
Did von Däniken have any specific examples, like something he thought was a sure sign of aliens?
Oh yeah, he did. One of his most famous examples is the lid of a sarcophagus, the one for the Mayan ruler, Pacal the Great. Von Däniken looked at the carvings on there, all intricate and everything, and he said it was an astronaut sitting in a spaceship, like piloting the thing. I've seen pictures. It's definitely detailed and open to interpretation. I'm guessing archaeologists who actually study Mayan culture have a different take.
Oh, for sure. They see those carvings and they see Pacal himself. And he's surrounded by Mayan symbols, things that were important to their beliefs, like the world tree, which represents the whole cosmos in their view. That's kind of von Däniken's thing, taking something and interpreting it to fit what he already believes, even if it doesn't match the culture or history surrounding it.
So less about finding proof, more about making proof.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's something you see a lot with von Däniken and other ancient astronaut stands too. They don't always consider the context, you know. It's like they've already made up their minds.
So imposing modern ideas on ancient mysteries. But von Däniken wasn't the only one with these kinds of theories.
Oh, not at all. There's Zecharia Sitchin, for example. He had his own take on this whole thing, and his was based on how he interpreted ancient Sumerian texts.
Sumerian texts, that's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen. Those are notoriously tough to decipher. What was Sitchin's big idea?
Okay, so get this. Sitchin thought those Sumerian texts were talking about aliens from a planet called Nibiru. And get this. He thought Nibiru had a 3,600-year orbit around the sun.
3,600 years. That's a long time between visits. So what were these Nibiruan tourists doing here, according to Sitchin?
Well, he didn't exactly think they were tourists. He said they came here to mine for gold. And here's the kicker. He said they created humans to be their miners.
So according to him, we're all descendants of alien gold miners. I think I missed that history lesson. But seriously, is there any scientific backing for this planet Nibiru or for Sitchin's interpretation of Sumerian writing?
Unfortunately for Sitchin, no. Astronomers haven't found any planet that matches his description. And experts on Sumerian texts, they say he was, let's say, very creative with his translations, like he was trying to make them fit his theory.
Sounds like our first ancient astronaut theory has officially crashed and burned, but I'm sure there are more where that came from. What other evidence do they point to? It's got to get more convincing, right?
Well, another common tactic is looking at ancient religious texts. Like they'll find something in there and say, see, aliens.
Wait, so it's not just a myth or a story, it's an alien encounter report. What kind of texts are we talking about?
One example is the Ramayana, which is this Hindu epic. It talks about these flying vehicles called Vimanas, and some people interpret those as spaceships.
Flying chariots in ancient India, I can see how that's exciting. But is there another way to interpret those Vimanas?
Oh, definitely. When you look at the Ramayana within the whole context of Hindu culture and literature, it makes sense to see those Vimanas as, well, mythical objects, not actual flying machines.
So more like metaphors than spaceships?
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. you know? And the Bible gets pulled into this too. They'll look at a passage like Genesis 6:1 to 4, the one about the sons of God having kids with humans, and say, that's proof of aliens hooking up with our ancestors.
I've heard that one, but it always seemed like a stretch to me. What's the more common interpretation of that passage?
Well, most scholars look at that and see it through the lens of ancient Hebrew beliefs. So the sons of God are more like divine beings, angels, that kind of thing, not little green men. Context is key, right?
Makes a lot more sense. And I'm betting they also use Ezekiel's vision as evidence. You know, the one with the wheels and the fire.
Oh, for sure. That's another classic example of reading something with an alien bias. Some people see that and think spaceships. But again, you got to remember, these are just interpretations. Most experts who study these texts, they don't see spaceships or aliens.
It's amazing how a different perspective can change the whole story. So we've got pyramids, mysterious artifacts, religious texts. What other proof do ancient astronaut fans like to pull out?
Okay, get ready for this one. Ancient artwork. They say some of it actually shows aliens and spaceships.
Wait, like cave paintings with little green men? Now I'm really interested.
Well, not quite little green men. They like to point to those really, really old cave paintings, like the Wandjina figures in Australia or the Val Camonica drawings in Italy. Those figures look a little unusual, so they say, see, astronauts in helmets.
I mean, those cave paintings go back thousands of years. That's a pretty compelling argument, if you ask me. What's the more realistic explanation?
It all comes back to context. Those Wandjina figures.
Yeah.
So the Aboriginal Australians, those are powerful spirits. They represent things like rain clouds, things that were super important to their survival. Not aliens, but the things that were just as crucial to their world.
So not visitors from outer space, but beings that were just as important to their understanding of the world.
Right. And it's not just cave paintings either. Some people look at art from the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, you know, those paintings with all the religious figures, and they'll point to some random object in the sky and say, that's a UFO.
You know, I have to admit, I've never spotted a UFO in a Renaissance painting. Maybe I need to look closer. What do art historians say about those?
Well, art historians, they see those objects and think about the whole painting. And 9 times out of 10, they'll tell you it's an angel or some kind of divine light, maybe even a weird cloud. It's all about what made sense in that time and place.
It's amazing how much difference context makes. It seems like every time we turn a corner with this ancient astronaut stuff, there's a simpler explanation. But I have a feeling those theories aren't going down without a fight, right?
Oh, you know it. This next one, this is their bread and butter. Ancient megastructures. Things like the pyramids, Stonehenge, those Moai statues on Easter Island.
The whole no way they built that
Yeah.
argument. Yeah, those are some of the most popular proof points, aren't they?
Exactly. They look at that stuff, and they can't imagine how humans could have done it with the technology they supposedly had back then. So, aliens must have been involved.
I get it. You stand there looking up at the Great Pyramid or those massive stone heads on Easter Island, and it's just awe-inspiring, even today. So how did they explain it then? Did the aliens swing by Home Depot on their way to Earth?
Well, some say the aliens did the work themselves, maybe shared some high-tech tools with a lucky few humans. Others say the aliens were more like the architects, you know, coming up with the plans and supervising.
Okay, yeah, that's a fun image. But I'm guessing archaeologists aren't quite ready to call on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens crew just yet.
Not quite. Archaeologists, they've been studying this stuff for ages. And while they don't have all the answers, they've shown that it is possible to build these things using old-school methods.
So no alien power tools or spaceships disguised as cranes.
Nope. It's more about being clever, working hard, and working together. Look at Stonehenge, for example. People have done experiments with those big stones, the megaliths. They've shown that you can move and stand up those huge rocks using pretty basic tools. We're talking logs, levers, and a lot of teamwork.
Amazing what humans can do when they put their minds and their backs into it. But what about those Moai statues? How did they move those giant heads all the way across Easter Island?
Good question. That's been a head-scratcher for a long time. But archaeologists, they're like detectives, always looking for clues. And they found evidence that suggests those statues were actually walked to where they are now.
Walked. Those things are enormous. What, did they have an ancient Egyptian version of a forklift?
Not exactly. They think they use ropes, wooden sleds, and probably a whole lot of planning. They basically tip them back and forth to make them walk.
Right, like that experiment where they moved that concrete replica. The refrigerator method. Simple, but it works. It seems like every time we look closer at this stuff, it turns out humans are way more capable than we give them credit for. No aliens needed.
You got it. And that brings up a really important point. We tend to look at the past through the lens of what we know today, our technology. And we forget that people back then, they were smart, they were resourceful. Just because we can't imagine how they did something doesn't mean they couldn't.
It's a good reminder to stay humble, right? We're not the be-all and end-all of human ingenuity.
Exactly. And we see that a lot with the ancient astronaut theory. It's like they're saying, well, I couldn't have built the pyramid, so aliens must have done it. But ancient people, they were incredibly innovative. They didn't need help from outer space.
Speaking of impressive things, we can't forget about those Nazca lines. Those things are huge and mysterious.
Ah, yes. Those lines and shapes etched into the Peruvian desert. Definitely a sight to see, even from high above. You've got hundreds of them, some stretching for miles. Animals, plants, geometric designs. No wonder people who believe in ancient astronauts are drawn to them.
I've seen aerial photos. They're massive. It's hard to wrap your head around how anyone could make those without being able to see the big picture.
Spaceships, or signals to the heavens. Because there's no way ancient people could have seen them from above, right? No hot air balloons, no airplanes.
So they had to be meant for alien eyes in the sky.
That's the idea, yeah. Aliens must be the explanation, because how else could they have done it?
All right, lay it on me. What's the real story?
Well, as with most of these ancient mysteries, there's a more down-to-earth explanation. Archaeologists have been studying those lines for ages, and they've learned a lot about them.
So no welcome wagon for extraterrestrial tourists.
Not exactly. They think the Nazca people themselves created the lines, somewhere between 500 BC and 500 AD.
But why? If they couldn't see them from the air, what was the point?
That's the million-dollar question, right? We don't know for sure, but the best guess is that it was all about religion. They might have been part of ceremonies, maybe connected to astronomy or water, which was super important in the desert.
Okay, so they were meant to be seen by the gods. But wouldn't those gods have to be, up in the sky?
True, but they didn't have to be alien gods. Remember, this was a culture that was really in tune with nature, the cycles of the seasons, the stars. Their gods were probably connected to all of that, the sky, the rain, everything.
So maybe the Nazca lines were a way to talk to those gods, to ask for their help or thank them.
Exactly. And as complicated as those lines look from above, archaeologists think the Nazca people used pretty simple tools to make them.
Simpler than building a spaceship, I'm guessing?
Way simpler. Think sticks, ropes, and a good eye for measurement. They'd scrape away the darker top layer of the ground to reveal the lighter soil underneath. And boom, you've got a line.
So less about advanced technology from space and more about human ingenuity and a connection to their environment.
Exactly. And you know what really puts a dent in that whole "you need to be in the air to make those shades" argument? A researcher actually proved them wrong.
Oh, I love a good myth busting. Tell me more.
So this guy, Joe Nickell, back in the 80s, he wanted to see if it was really impossible to create a Nazca-like figure without flying.
Did he rent a helicopter? Climb a mountain?
Nope, he kept it old school. He and his team, they just used stakes, ropes, and some basic measuring tools. No fancy technology.
And they did it. Made one of those figures without ever seeing it from above.
They did. And you know what? It turned out pretty darn good. It proved that with a little bit of planning, some math skills, and good old-fashioned teamwork, humans can make amazing things. No alien intervention necessary.
That's a good story. It really makes you think maybe the simplest answer is usually the right one, even when it comes to these ancient mysteries. But if aliens didn't build the pyramids or the Nazca lines or inspire our religious texts, why are so many people drawn to those ideas?
That's a good question, isn't it? I think deep down, humans, we love a good mystery. We want to believe there's more out there, something bigger than ourselves.
So sometimes those more out there explanations, they just feel more exciting.
Yeah, maybe. It's easy to get caught up in the mystery of it all. Aliens, ancient civilizations, lost technologies. It's romantic. It makes you feel like anything is possible, even if the evidence isn't really there.
It's like we want the story to be true, even if it probably isn't.
Kind of, yeah. But there's also something to be said for using our imaginations. It's important to look at the evidence, of course, but It's also fun to say, what if?
Right. I mean, that's how we learn new things, by asking questions and being curious.
Exactly. The ancient astronaut theory, it might not hold water scientifically, but it does make us think outside the box. It makes us realize that there's still so much we don't know about the universe and about our own past.
So we might not be having tea parties with aliens anytime soon, but it's still fun to think about the possibilities, right? And to appreciate how these ancient cultures still capture our imaginations today.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance between being skeptical and being open to new ideas.
Well said. Before we finish up our ancient astronaut adventure, was there anything else from your research that really stood out to you? Something that made you think?
One thing that struck me was how often this theory seems to downplay what ancient cultures accomplished, especially cultures outside of Europe. It's almost like they're saying, those people weren't smart enough to build those things, so aliens must have done it for them.
Yeah.
And that's just not right.
That's a good point. It's one thing to be fascinated by a mystery, but it's another thing to say that certain groups of people couldn't have achieved something amazing on their own.
Exactly. We have to remember that the ancient world was full of incredible cultures, each with their own knowledge and skills. To say that they needed help from aliens takes away from their accomplishments.
It's like we're looking back at the past with blinders on, seeing what we want to see. We need to be more aware of that, and give credit where credit is due.
100%. Perspective is everything.
This has been an incredible look at the ancient astronaut theory. But I gotta ask, is there even a tiny chance, a sliver of possibility, that somewhere out there, buried under all these stories, there might be a grain of truth to all of this?
That's what makes it so much fun, right? We just don't know for sure. But even if we never find proof that aliens visited us in the past, the fact that we're still asking these questions, it shows how curious we are. We want to understand our place in the universe. And that search, that's always worthwhile.
You're right. It's that curiosity that keeps us moving forward. And even if we don't find aliens, we're learning a lot about ourselves and our planet along the way.
Yeah. And, we've been talking a lot about what ancient humans couldn't do, at least according to these theories.
Right. Like they weren't capable of amazing things without a little help from their alien friends.
Exactly. But the thing is, when you look at what they did accomplish, it's pretty mind-blowing. We should be celebrating that, Human ingenuity and all.
Agreed. I mean, we're still talking about the pyramids and Stonehenge and those Nazca lines thousands of years later. Those weren't just built overnight. It took serious skill and dedication.
Totally. They were master architects, engineers, artists, and they did it all without the technology we have today. Makes you wonder what people will think about our stuff thousands of years from now.
That's a really interesting thought. Imagine archaeologists digging up, like, a smartphone or a skyscraper in a few thousand years. They'd probably come up with some pretty wild theories about us.
Right. Or maybe they'd be impressed with how we managed to connect the world with the internet or something. It's all about perspective.
This has been an awesome journey into the world of ancient astronauts. I have to admit, even though we've debunked a lot of these theories, it's still fun to think about.
Oh, absolutely. And, even if we never find a crashed flying saucer or an alien welcome mat, it's good to be reminded that there's still so much we don't know about the universe.
Exactly. It's a big, mysterious place, and we're just starting to scratch the surface. So, for all we know, maybe there's an alien civilization out there looking back at us and wondering the same things.
Now, that is a mind-blowing thought. Makes you want to grab a telescope and start searching the stars, right?
I might just do that. Well, until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never lose that sense of wonder. Who knows what incredible mysteries we'll uncover next?
I can't wait.
Ever notice how some people, they just have this way about them, makes you believe whatever they're saying?
Oh, absolutely. You can hear the exact same words from someone else.
Totally. And it just falls flat.
Exactly. It's like this secret ingredient.
It's like a superpower.
It is. And that's what we're diving into today. It's called ethos.
Yes. And the thing is, this isn't some newfangled idea either. The ancient Greeks were onto this ages ago.
Oh, yeah. They were way ahead of the curve.
So today we're taking a deep dive into ethos, where it came from, how it works in arguments.
Even how it sneaks into the stories we love.
Yeah.
It's everywhere once you start to see it.
It's true. And what's really interesting is your ethos, it's not set in stone, is it?
Not at all. It can change depending on who you're talking to, what you're talking about.
It's like you've got different versions of yourself out there.
Exactly. Different roles, different contexts.
Okay, so let's rewind way back to ancient Greece for a sec. Wikipedia, believe it or not, surprised me with where this word ethos actually comes from.
Oh, it's a wild ride, that etymology.
It's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. So picture that. It originally meant accustomed place. Think of a horse, right?
Okay, a horse.
It's stable, home turf, That's where it belongs.
So how do we get from horses to, like, convincing someone to see our point of view?
Well, language is a funny thing, right? It shifts over time. So that
Yeah.
idea of a custom place, it morphed into custom, then character.
Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see it.
And suddenly we're talking about what makes someone seem trustworthy based on, like, their background, what they stand for.
So it's like, I'm more likely to trust a recipe from a chef who's been cooking for 20 years.
Right. Versus, like, your buddy you just bought a cookbook.
Exactly. Their experience, it's part of their ethos.
100%. It's not just about the words themselves,
Yeah.
but does your life, do your actions, back them up? And this is actually where ethos and ethics, those two words, they get all tangled up.
Because we tend to trust people who seem like they're coming from a good place, morally.
Right, but it gets even deeper than that.
Yeah.
Aristotle, the OG philosopher of persuasion.
Oh, yeah. Big Aristotle fan.
Well, he broke ethos down into 3 parts. 3 ways your audience sizes you up.
Okay, lay some Aristotle on me. What's first?
He called it phronesis. Sounds super complicated.
It does.
But it basically means you've got street smarts when it comes to the topic at hand. Like, yeah, you can read every book under the sun,
Right.
but have you actually done the thing?
It's the difference between, like, an entrepreneur who learned by doing and someone who just talks a big game.
Exactly. That entrepreneur, they've got phronesis in spades. And it's not just about having been there, done that. It's about using that knowledge to actually make good decisions.
No.
That's where the trust comes in.
Got it. Okay, so that's one. What's Aristotle's second ingredient for building ethos?
He called it arete.
Okay, I'm sensing a theme here with the Greek words. Does arete have something to do with being a good person?
Yet it's all about virtue, being seen as ethical, moral, but, and this is a big but,
Uh-oh. There's always a catch, right?
well, what's considered good, it changes depending on the time, the place.
Yeah, what flies in one culture might totally flop somewhere else.
Exactly. So how do you navigate that?
Right, how do you make sure your asherette is up to par?
It's about being aware of your audience, their values, showing them you understand their idea of right and wrong.
So you can be the most experienced person in the room, but if they don't think you're a decent human being...
Game over. Trust is broken.
Makes sense. Okay, we've got street smarts, we've got good character. What's Aristotle's third element for building this all-important ethos?
So that third element, Aristotle, he called it eunoia.
Eunoia. Okay, another good one.
Yeah, it's basically like showing your audience, hey, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
You get them. You care about what they care about, not just your own agenda.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. It's like that feeling when someone's really listening, trying to understand where you're coming from, not just waiting to jump in.
Right, it builds trust.
Huge trust builder,
Yeah.
totally. Whereas, like, if someone seems totally checked out...
Or like their words are going to have 0 impact on their own life.
Exactly. You're not going to trust them as much, are you?
Not a chance.
Makes you wonder, how much history could have gone differently if some folks had worked on their eunoia a bit. But this also makes me think about, like, nowadays, when a company gets caught doing something shady,
Oh, yeah.
their reputation, it's gone just like that.
Instantaneously.
Yeah.
And that right there is ethos or, well, lack of ethos.
Ethos taking a nosedive.
Crash and burn.
It's like that saying, it takes a lifetime to build a good reputation.
But you can lose it in a minute.
Exactly.
And these days, with social media, forget a minute.
It's a second.
Poof, gone.
So, okay, how do you fix that? Once your ethos is damaged, how do you rebuild it?
Well, it takes time. Consistency, you got to own your mistakes.
Yeah.
None of that sweeping it under the rug stuff.
Honesty is key.
100%.
Yeah.
And then it's about walking the walk, showing people you've actually learned you're doing better.
So it's not just saying sorry, it's about proving it.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. Right. Now, what about those situations where someone's ethos, it's kind of shaky right off the bat? Are there, like, red flags we should be looking out for?
Totally. Wikipedia actually mentions a couple. Things that make you go, maybe I shouldn't trust this person so easily.
Okay, I like it. Hit me with the red flags.
So one of them is if they have a vested interest in the outcome.
So it's like if a used car salesman is telling me this car's a steal,
Yeah,
I'm going to be a little skeptical. He wants me to buy it.
exactly. Or imagine a politician, right?
Yeah.
They're pushing this policy.
That just happens to line their pockets.
Exactly. Doesn't mean they're wrong, but be cautious.
Be wary. Okay, that makes sense. What's another ethos buster?
Lack of expertise.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to learn astrophysics, I'm probably not going to go to,
Your dentist.
unless my dentist is also a secret astrophysicist.
Right. Even if your dentist does give really good teeth cleaning advice.
Maybe stick to the teeth for that one.
Exactly. Okay, so trust the experts. Makes sense. But here's where things get kind of wild. We've talked about, like, arguments, speeches, but ethos, it goes way beyond that. Ready to have your mind blown?
Hit me.
Wikipedia links ethos to, wait for it, Greek tragedy,
Whoa, okay.
right? Like those super dramatic plays.
Antigone, Oedipus, all that.
Yeah. What does that have to do with trust and persuasion? Okay, I'll bite. Greek tragedy. How does ethos work in those stories? I mean, they're all about fate and gods and curses. It's a lot.
It's about how those stories are told. See, even though those plays, they had masks, simple set.
Right, not exactly Hollywood special effects back then.
Exactly. But those playwrights, they were masters at making you connect with the characters, understand their choices.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, is ethos at work.
So, okay, even though it's a totally different world, gods, garces, all that, we still relate to the human stuff, their motivations.
100%. Take Antigone, for example.
Okay, Antigone.
She buries her brother, right?
Yeah.
Even though it means going against the king, facing
Right.
death.
Talk about standing up for what you believe in.
Right. That unwavering commitment to her family, to what she thinks is right, that's what makes her such a powerful character, even if you don't agree with her.
She's definitely got that side, that's for sure. But I can see how it's more than that. Her actions, everything about her, it makes us trust her, makes us root for her, even when she's breaking the rules.
That's the magic of ethos and storytelling.
Yeah.
It bridges that gap between the character and the audience. And this doesn't just apply to the heroes either, you know?
Oh, interesting. So even the sidekick, the smaller characters, they gotta have ethos too.
Absolutely. Wikipedia actually points this out. Even those characters, they can make or break a story. It's all about their choices and how those choices make us feel.
Okay, I need an example. Give me a for instance.
All right, how about Julius Caesar?
Classic.
All right, so Brutus. Not the main guy, right? But his decision to join that whole conspiracy against Caesar.
Huge consequences.
Exactly. And the thing about Brutus is, he's not some big, charismatic leader type.
Not exactly the life of the party.
No. So when he makes that choice, it's unexpected. And the way the playwright portrays it, that's what makes it such a pivotal moment in the play.
So even if Brutus's ethos isn't, like, perfect, it's still a tool the playwright uses to keep us hooked.
Exactly. And it makes you realize there's so much that goes into building ethos, even in fiction. It's all deliberate.
Mind-blowing. But, okay, we've been talking about words a lot. What about visuals? Can visuals have ethos?
Funny you should ask that. Wikipedia actually talks about how the ancient Greeks, they were doing this with their art. Sculptures, paintings.
Hold on, how can a statue have ethos? It can't talk.
True, but it can still convey values, beliefs, a whole moral code even. Imagine like a statue of a hero choosing to die rather than, I don't know, surrender to an enemy.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
That image, right? It's not just a pretty picture. It's telling you something about that culture. Courage, honor, sacrifice. All of that baked into one statue.
So it's like the artist is using the hero's ethos to send a message.
Exactly. And that's something we still see today. Think about branding, advertising.
Oh my gosh, it's said everywhere.
Right. A company's logo, the photos they use, even an influencer's whole aesthetic. It's all about building trust, conveying values, even if we don't realize it.
It's like this hidden language we're all speaking.
Exactly. And once you start to recognize it, it's like you've unlocked this whole other level of understanding. You become a more aware consumer, more critical thinker.
More informed citizen.
Exactly.
This has been amazing. I feel like we've gone on such a journey from ancient Greece to modern day marketing, and it all comes back to this idea of ethos. So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
That you have ethos too. You're always building it, shaping it, whether you realize it or not. And once you understand how it works, you can use that knowledge to become a better communicator, a more critical listener.
More persuasive person overall.
Exactly.
I love it. I'm calling it from now on, we're all ethos detectives. We're going to go out into the world. We're going to spot ethos everywhere.
I love it.
And we're going to use that knowledge for good. That's it for today's Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, stay curious.